Hi everyone. So I've been looking at the different childhood education, let's say, philosophies that exist out there. So here just like to describe, let's say, the basic playing field, the battlefield. You have the government, let's say, scientifically backed education program, which is the mainstream program. It goes back until, like, the history of it, the origin goes back until I believe it's the 1800s or the 1700s. With at the time, the Germans, they developed a military school, and that military school became the example for what we now have as Western society's education system, which is the teacher, the classroom, and everything we know as what's considered normal, mainstream. Then, of course, if you go to university, you get, your training in childhood education. That's like scientifically, it's a agreed upon thing. That's there. When I took developmental psychology, which is about humans' development, which includes obviously education because you're studying how the human develops. But there's basically different, let's say, schools of thought in relationship to learning. Now, all of these things, when I read them again, they are all very abstract. They are not something practical. You cannot write you cannot write something to support teachers to know how to teach by basing it on this, like speaking in scientific terms. Which I notice that the teacher training programs, the mainstream ones, they do that. They use really specific vocabulary words, very specific scientific terms to describe the human being. And for me, when I read this, after having walked this personal process with myself, with understanding who I am, I recognize how this cannot be supportive really to any person, because it's not framed into real, practical, everyday life. What does it actually mean to be a teacher? What does it mean to be a parent or a nanny? Someone who watches out for children, who educates them. What does that really mean? And that essence of that, I did not see that within the material that now exists, the knowledge that now exists, that is used to guide teachers and teach them how to be a teacher. And so that's what I saw initially. And of course, there's other schools here in the United States. There are, these are international schools, like, or theories, same thing, like philosophies of how to approach education, which is the Montessori approach and the Waldorf approach, as well as the Sudbury approach. And of course, there's others out there, but I noticed that also within reading these, there's also the same point, the same problem, where is the actual guide? Where is the actual support in really being a teacher, a parent? Because when I read these, it's like, it's very intellectual, it's very mental, it's very cut off from reality. And maybe it's because this really isn't understood. It's not saying, I'm not saying like it's anyone's fault, but maybe this is the reason why it's like this, because, I don't know, maybe we don't really understand it fully, which would be a problem, of course. Like for me, like what I've walked with myself personally, Like I've gone through a process of being practical, being real, dealing with real things, real situations, finding, everyday solutions to everyday problems. And I have words, I have vocabulary that I use to describe that to myself and for others. And it helps me and it helps others. And it's simple. It's not complex. It's not like scientific or abstract or these great ideas. It's just really simple, practical, everyday common sense. And what I'm seeing here is the same thing that if I want to be educated on how to be, let's say, a teacher, an educator, this is the very first thing that I want to read, which is the primary influence within the classroom, the primary point the teacher, the parent, the person must be aware of is that you are the one who you are that's going to be influenced in determining the environment, the situation. Who you are in how you act, how you think, how you talk, how you behave. It's all about who you are, what you feel on an emotional level, on a feeling level. And this isn't something that's talked about scientifically, but that has an effect on other people. And we know that naturally, intuitively, because we've seen it and we've experienced it. But how come that isn't really discussed? Because, the reason why would be because it's really the fundamental question of who are you? And if we were to design our whole education system around this point, we would have to make it a criteria that we analyze people based on who they are before they can educate children, before they can take those roles. And do we really do that? Do we really look at who a person is? Are they manipulative? Are they deceptive? Are they controlling? And in truth, reality, we as a society, we as a humanity, have not focused on this and have not really made this a priority for ourselves. We have placed other ideas and externalized things as more important, like becoming wealthy, being successful, having money, having all these sort of external dreams realized, but we don't have this one really basic, really rewarding internal dream, I guess, a self dream, where it's just about who you are and your development as a human being. Like, imagine if we made that a staple, something that, okay, we all have to actually ask the question, like, what is a dream for me, myself? What is the dream I have for myself? Of who I'm going to be, what I'm going to live, what's my standards, what's my principles of who I am. And we made that one shift to focus on that. All of us, as parents, as educators, as people, as families. That already solves many problems, and that already paves the way to many solutions. If we have a problem, the solution becomes obvious because it all starts with who we are, ourselves. And so, education can be something that is simple, it's here, it's just who we are. We educate through our example. We educate through who we are. And that's so basic, that's so fundamental, and that's so true. But that's not within our mainstream or even alternative education. That's not really found anywhere. But it is right here. I walk this process with myself. Others have walked this process with themselves. This has been something that exists within people, this potential, and this point where people do push to change themselves, do push to develop themselves, to look at who they are, to observe who they are. What we have to do is to really live this and bring this out into the world. And share who we are, and share what people who stand up within their process of developing themselves, they share who they are. And so within that, help others to realize their potentials. And this general potential for all of humanity to develop oneself. Because isn't that what education really is? Developing oneself. That's the fundamental point. If you're not developing yourself, are you really learning? I mean, that should be the primary point within not only in education with children, but within all our lives, within everyone. So, this is me sharing my point. I hope one day to change this so that we all can reach our utmost potentials of who we are. So, thank you very much.